So, it's been a while. A whole bunch has happened in the time since, but I'll try to keep this just relevant to the project. To make a long story short, and so you can click away and do other things, the Ikusa Project is no longer a game. It's a book project. I've got nearly everything adapted, and I've already started first drafts on the first three novels. There's supposed to be a total of five. At if you're looking for anything further related to the game or any resources, they're not coming. It was it wasn't a decision I made lightly, but it is a decision I made a long time ago. So I'm sorry for not even thinking about this place. Once I came to that decision and realized it's what I was able to do, I more or less just cut ties with what with everything I had been doing up until that point. Um, so to any followers who are still clicking on this page, I'm sorry. I don't think I'll be posting anything new because I don't really trust this site all that much. But if I remember, I'll leave some contact info for my Discord and the places where you can find me. It's not many. I guess I can talk about what the new project is. I guess the new direction that it's taking. Let's see. To really start with the decision that, with the events that led to this decision. I had wanted to make a game for most of my life, and taking the form of a JRPG just made sense because that was my favorite genre as a kid, all through high school. I didn't really even get into action or platforming until after high school, but RPGs are still my favorite. It was what I wanted to do for a long time, and RPG Maker just made everything simple, but the scope of this particular project was too large for one person. Now, I had brought on some extra help through the years to try and, make the project a reality, and I did get some help at certain points in time, but the help didn't last. I'm grateful for what they did, to be sure, but invariably, I was left alone with the rest of the project on my hands. And I was trying to do everything I could to create everything I wanted. It was too much. But what really put the nail in the coffin for it was the lack of reception I got. Now, to be sure, the blame rests with me. I didn't market it very well. I still don't have much experience in marketing. I didn't know how to sell the thing that I was trying to make, or at least get the idea out, get the news out. None of that really happened. I was relying on just a few friends I had made who were willing to listen to it, and that was it. But even then, when I was hyping up the production of Beta 2, and told everyone who was interested that it was out. And then I got one person to actually provide feedback. I don't know how many people actually bothered to play it. I'm hoping some people did. Because even Beta 2 had a lot into it. It was a 4-hour playtime when I tested it myself. But only one person gave feedback, and even that was, I want to say, 2 years after it dropped. It was someone new, another friend I had made in the time since, and we were working on a different project, something just unrelated. That kind of reception killed me. And it made me realize that even though I wanted to make the game, it was a game. It needed to have an audience, and I lacked that. And having to face that big of a goal while I was still just working on it by myself just made it a mountain that I really didn't have the courage to climb. So I had a little come to Jesus moment where I considered what I really wanted was to tell the story. It didn't have to be in a game, even though I had wanted it to be that way for so long. It didn't have to be. The story could take place through any form, any medium that I wanted. And in my own humble opinion, I'd gotten pretty skilled with writing. And I actually have I have more people who are interested in my writing skill than there ever were in my game making skill. So I went with that. I decided to take the story that I had, break it down again, and adapt it for use in a novel format. A whole lot of ideas got thrown out. A whole bunch of new ideas suddenly took form. And really before I knew it, all the other questions that I had been putting off, just like, cross that bridge until we get there, those kind of questions that I had been putting off while working on the game project, all of a sudden I was able to come up with just answers like that when it was in the scope of a novel. Suddenly I knew exactly who the central character was going to be. I knew exactly what I had to do for the first book. I knew exactly how I needed the second book to end. I knew about these different conflicts. I knew the key conversations that needed to take place. While I hadn't gotten around to writing them down, suddenly I had the core theme at each of them. And I found the dramatic question at the center of the entire series. Something that, up until that point, I didn't realize I even lacked. I was so focused on trying to make a game that was fun to play, I kind of got lost when trying to tell the story. The story itself was still there, but they weren't really experiencing it because they were just getting buried in the minutia of the game project. When I converted it, it's like I had pieces to a puzzle, but I didn't have the rest of the puzzle. When I converted it to a novel project, the rest of the pieces were there, waiting for me. I just had to basically flip them over to see. It was deceptively simple. The hard part was putting them all together and redrafting everything to make sense as a novel project. But now gears are turning. Just as they were when the idea for a game project first arrived in, what was it? 2005? Earlier than that? Maybe right after the forum roleplay died out. It was a liberating feeling. And I knew that if I really was going to go through with it, I had to devote myself to it. Now, this isn't such a thing where I left my job for it or suddenly dumped a whole bunch of savings into different classes and whatnot. I didn't leave my job until 2 weeks ago, but that was for different reasons. And I don't think that pouring money into resources when I more or less have already learned those lessons, that wasn't necessary. There's still a whole bunch I could learn, and that's why I constantly seek feedback, because I make mistakes a lot. But at least when it comes to writing, I can quickly share it, and I don't have to go through the process of compiling and compressing and then uploading and waiting for someone to reach that point. It makes practical sense. if I just focus on the pragmatism, then yeah, of course it makes practical sense. Writing a book, though, this idea that I've settled on is one of the most liberating things I've come up with. Because I was telling people, I'm making a game. Oh, what's it like? Well, they have expectations because my social circles, everyone plays games, but not everyone plays the same genre of games. So if I can't describe the type of game well, then I have to do that first. I have to go through all the technical things, and it kind of killed interest before I really got to it. But more importantly, even now, thinking back on it, people were more interested in the technical aspects and the minutiae of the game rather than the story that I ultimately wanted to tell. Now when I tell people that I'm writing a book, they ask me, well, what's it about? And that is something I can answer. I haven't really figured out a scripted way to provide an answer, of course, but it's something that I can actually get into. So now, it's not the Ikusa Game Project, it's just the Ikusa Project being converted into a novel. I already have some 30 pages for book 1 drafted out. I've got the final 30 pages for book 2 drafted out. I'm working on the opening of book 3 because all of these happen in rapid succession within a few years of each other in the story. Books 4 and 5 take place a couple decades later, so those ones can hold off a little bit and give me time to figure out the rest of the details for book 5. It is quite large. There's still a couple of flaws that I need to figure out, and I don't think that they're going to be felt from the very beginning, or at least I hope not. But at this point, it's a matter of questioning the rules that I have in place for this fictional world. Like, if I do this action, is it going to break this rule, or is it just going to bend it? And if it does either of those things, am I okay with it? Am I okay with them just rewriting the rulebook at the end of this story in order to make this conflict possible? My first answer is no, but the more I consider it, the more I think that's not really that bad of an idea. Nonetheless, my first answer is still no, so I have to consider it carefully. And then there's the gauntlet of book 1 itself. I'm basically coming up with minor ideas for it as I go. I've got the major plot all down. I've got all these stops along the way, but the trouble is writing down everything in between. And then doing justice for the major points. It is... At this point, I'm just gonna ramble. Oh well. I said what I needed to say. I just want to pass the word along, even though nobody's here to hear it, that the game project doesn't exist anymore. I mean, you can still find archives of it online. I'm pretty sure that link still works. Doesn't matter. But everything is a book project now. Once I get something more substantial, I intend to actually bother with networking and marketing, for lack of a better term. But for right now, it is just me working on the drafts 1 or 2 pages at a time. This is already going to stretch into hundreds per book, and I am eager to reach that number. Alright, I'll leave some details about the Discord group that I am in charge of, where I post all of my Ikusa updates and ask questions, get everything like that. So if anyone is interested, feel free to join and go through the reactions. Jos!